why was Muammar Gaddafi killed? Muammar Gaddafi was murdered because he, along with the other African heads of state, were about to bring into existence Africa's first central bank. They were erecting a central bank in Africa, which was going to do what? Back its money to the resources under the ground in Africa. Now, what would that have done to the global economic order? Remember, the United States dollar isn't backed on any natural resource. The British pound isn't backed on any natural resource. The Canadian dollar, the European Union, their currency isn't backed on any natural resource because Europe doesn't have a lot of natural resources. Africa does. So if they would have been successful in creating a central bank of Africa, coming up with a unitary currency, and then backing that currency to the material wealth under the soil, they would have bankrupted.
So at the start of the pandemic, all of these organizations restructured, laid people off, all of this. They went into survival mode and just cut positions left and right. Now they're trying to refill the positions and people aren't coming back. And I already hear the ridiculous narrative of people just don't want to work. Stop. Just stop. You and I both know that's a lie from the pit of hell. The thing about trauma is that it makes you reprioritize and it awakens you to the fact that you weren't living. That's what happened. Your organizational culture was slowly poisoning your employees, and they've had time to breathe and recover, and they don't want to put themselves through that again. Instead of asking, why doesn't anyone want to work? You should be asking, why don't they want to come back? How can we be better?
Last week I drove halfway across the country and I ended up staying for the night in a town called Corbin, Kentucky. If you look Corbin up online, you'll see it's where KFC originated. They have the original Colonel Sanders Cafe and a museum. But if you do more research, you'll find that it was a sundown town for most of the 20th century where an infamous race riot occurred. Pause to read what a sundown town is. It said that there was up to 10,000 sundown towns in the US between 1890 and 1960. To this day, Corbin is 96% white, and the black population used to be a little bit bigger, that is until the race riot of 1919. I found that there is a whole documentary about Corbin, Kentucky on YouTube. It was filmed in 1991, and it's all about the race riot. FYI, there's a lot of racist language used when they interview locals. So what happened during this riot? Let's find out. During World War I, Corbin, Kentucky was a railroad hub. And with a lot of the local men fighting overseas, the railroad ended up hiring a couple hundred African-American men to come live in Corbin and work. There's not a lot of evidence about what started this riot, but it's said to have started over a gambling dispute. So on October 30th, 1919, an armed white mob forced every African-American that was living in the town out at gunpoint. After they rounded up every black person at gunpoint, they forced them onto train cars and sent them to Knoxville, Tennessee and Louisville, Kentucky. They had to leave behind everything, their homes, their jobs, their belongings, all because of racism. Luckily, no one was reported to have been killed during this riot, but as we know, that is not the case for the multitudes of other race riots in U.S. history where countless black people have been massacred. I want to leave you with a very telling clip from the documentary that could have come out of Tucker Carlson's mouth today.
Do you feel that there's any purpose in looking at the legacy of the riot?
That I see none whatsoever. In fact, I feel that this, in some instances, creates more problems than it solves. I feel that in lots of instances through the media, I think the exposure of those situations only creates in the minds of people that, well, maybe we need to change those situations.
That's the same exact argument people use today. And to that I say, there's a reason you don't want the truth taught, because then things would have to actually change. White supremacy would have to be dismantled. But I'll keep teaching the truth. I'm not going to rely on omission, half-truths, and flat-out lies. And I really recommend you watch that documentary. It was very informative.